Welcome back to your learning journey in the statistics and probability for data science. So folks, till now in our learning journey, we have got a foundation of statistics and we have understood about the exploratory data analysis. Now in this video, we will look into the steps in exploratory data analysis and also we will perform the exploratory data analysis in a hands-on manner. So that's the agenda of this video and the next video. Okay, so let's get started and understand what are the steps in EDA and why is it important for you. See, when we get a data set, let me just take you to an example data set. So the data set that I'm going to show you is an Uber data set. So if I take you to the data set, so this is how my data set would look like. So I've got some GitHub link, and in one of the GitHub link, I found this data set. Okay, I've got the information about the data. Let me do one thing. I'm going to save this data and open in an Excel sheet so that you can get a better understanding of the same. So if I open this uber.csv file, so this data, that means this CSV file has got multiple columns inside it. We've got the pickup date, we've got the borrow, we've got the pickups, number of pickups, and we've got the various other columns that we have got on this data set. So when you're dealing with such a data which is tabular in structure, you do not know about how each of these features are having the relationship with each other. Now, when we are dealing with such uncertainty in the data set, the first step that we would take is exploring this data. Now, while exploring the data, we would analyze the data one column at a time. Now, if I analyze one column at a time, it would be an univariate analysis. And if I column two columns at a time, then it will be a bivariate analysis. And if I analyze multiple columns at the same time, then I'm going to say this as a multivariate analysis. Now, here, when we talk about this exploratory data analysis, so we will load the data. Now, once we load the data, we will check the formatting of the data set, whether the data set has been loaded in a right format or not. For example, if I've got a numerical column in my data set, I have to ensure that the data type is in numerical format. It could be integer, floating point numbers, so that I can apply in a mathematical way. And when we talk about the string, so I have to ensure that there are no missing values, or in some cases I'll have to ensure that I will fix the errors in that column which is in the string format. And not just that, to make a better sense of the data set, when we have a string value, if it is required for my analysis, then I'll have to find a way to transform that column into the respective numerical format depending on type of data that it holds. Now this connects back to the learning that we had in our first section. So if you remember, in the first section I have explained about the types of data, isn't it? So in the types of data, and I have also shown you about the how to analyze each and every type of data, isn't it? So this connects back to our first section where we analyze the individual data, perform the transformation depending on type of the data that each column holds. Now, in those cases, I will perform the data loading, data conversion, data transformation. Sometimes I will use the existing columns and generate a new column. Now, once I do all those things, I'll take care of the outliers. Now, in order to find the outliers, we have various ways. I can make use of plotting method like the box plot and find the outliers in a given data. Or I can make use of the z-score, and based on the z-score and applying the normal distribution, I can find the outliers. So I can use those techniques and deal with those outliers. I can either remove it or I can set it at the maximum or the minimum threshold value depending on those values that I'm dealing with. Now, once I do all those things, then I would say that my data is ready for applying to the machine learning model. So whether you're doing it for the production data or whether you're doing it for your practice, these are the same steps that we always follow. You should not skip any of these steps because this is very important. When you're doing in the production, maybe you will be making use of other services and you will create a pipeline. Now, in general, when you're doing the analysis and you're learning the statistics and the core idea behind these topics, it's very important that you apply it individually on the columns so that not only you know technical stuff, but also the intuition behind it. So the agenda of this video and the next video is to give you this background. Okay, how do we normally explore the data? Now that you have a better idea about why we require this EDA and about this data set, now let me just start by loading this data set. I'm going to load the necessary libraries. I'll import NumPy library. I'll import Seaborn library. And along with that, I'm also going to import Matplotlib library. Okay. And once this is done, okay, I'll start by loading this data as a data frame. I'm going to say pd.read and CSV, and I'll specify the link directly. So ensure that you are connected to the internet to load the data directly from the link. Okay, so just mention as R to treat it as the raw string. Okay, and I'll display first few entries of this data frame. So this is how the first few entries of my data frame would look like. Okay, now once we load the data, we'll generally start by displaying the first few entries, and the first few entries looks like this. At least it will give us a better picture as how does the data would look like. The pickup date is the column which includes the date. Okay, these are the starting values. Let me just display the last few entries. If I display last few entries, these are the last few entries. So I can say that the date range is from 1st of Jan 2015 to 30th of June 2015. That is what I would observe on this given data. Okay, and we have the borough column, and which contains the name of the New York borough where the pickup was actually made, and we've got various columns in the data set. And if you just think about it, so all these columns are numerical in nature. We can clearly observe on holiday is a, I would say, a nominal data where it has got Y and N. That is what we observe in this given data. Okay, so it makes sense. Now let's have a quick view at the shape of this data frame. So in my data frame, so we have got 29101 rows and 13 columns in this given data. Okay, now let's have a look into the information. If we check the information, so this is how the information about this data frame. So we've got the pickup date, and this is being treated as string data type. So borough, which is in string, it's fine. Okay, and all the other columns are numerical in nature except the holiday. That is what we observe on this given data. Okay, now once we get the data, so common thing that we will do is we will describe the 5-point summary of this data set, especially on the numerical column. So I can say df.describe, and this will give me the information about each and every numerical columns on this given data. It tells me the mean, standard deviation, minimum, maximum, median, and so on. So let's observe the individual column at a very high level. So if I just look at the very high level, we can clearly observe that, see the column of mean and standard deviation. If you observe, each and every column has the different range. So each values, that is values in the individual columns, are a different range. If I want to compare it, then I have to bring it to a common scale. So that's something that we have to do. So maybe we can apply the techniques like standard scaler in order to perform this activity. Okay, and the another thing, if I want to include and work with the string data, I can say include is equal to O. So this is going to describe by including the object data type, that is the string. So this gives me the number of unique entries of the string column and the mode of the individual column. Okay, so that's how we can go ahead and get a better idea about the data that we are working. Okay, now once that is done, we will then go ahead and transform the data. Now I'll keep it very simple as of now. Okay, if I want to transform a column, let's say I want to transform this column of pickup date. If I want to transform it, then I just have to send this column data inside pd.to_datetime. So what I'm going to do is I'll say df pickup date, and I'm going to say pd.to_datetime, and this is going to convert my column into the datetime format. Now, the reason that I have applied is, see, once I converted this data into the datetime format, I'll now have the flexibility to extract the date, hour, day, and so on. So those kind of flexibility that I would have. Okay, so that's the flexibility that we will have whenever we are working. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'll stop the video over here. So now that you have a better idea as what we are trying to do in the EDA, so in the next video we'll take up a deeper understanding on this hands-on part, and I'll share you some of the key ideas as how we can go ahead and perform this activity on EDA. So I'll see you next time.